All right, everybody, here we are, man. Back again. This is side two of Black Sabbath's Heaven and Hell. Heaven and Hell being the first album being helmed by their new singer, Ronnie James Dio. Long time coming for this Black Sabbath reaction, man. And in keeping with the fact that Tony Iommi's birthday was just a few days ago, it's a little bit belated, but happy birthday, Tony. And here we go, man. This is side two, Heaven and Hell. Heaven and Hell, side two. Let's get it. This is Money Can't Buy You Happiness message. Saying he's the answer to the love that she might be seeking. Excellent. Powerful song. Great vocals, man. Brother's got some mad skills.
Die young, die young. Can't you see the writing in the air? Die young, gonna die young. Someone stopped the fair.
Live for today, live in the now, seize the moment. You don't know if you'll be here tomorrow. Good advice. I really dig the bass musicianship of music.
Lord, she's handsome as she flows across the floor. Nothing I've seen in my life has ever pleased me more. She's got the look of freedom, and it makes you think she's wild. But I can see right through it all. It's a way to
getting a lady pregnant, and then she can turn around and get financial support out of you. I think this is a warning.
You feel a fire, she lift you higher, but don't be fooled. Just turn your head and walk away.
Yeah, she just wants to have a child and get support. Great guitar solo in this.
It's a long way to nowhere, and I'm leaving very soon. On the way, we pass so close to the backside of the moon. Hey, join the traveler if you've got nowhere to go. Hang your head and take my hand. It's the only road I know. Oh, lonely is the world. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been higher than stardust. I've been seen upon the sun. I used to count in millions then, but now I only count in one. Come on, join the traveler if you got nowhere to go. Hang your head and take my hand. It's the only road I know. Yeah, lonely is the word. Got to be the saddest soul I've ever heard.
Someone once had it all, now they've got nothing. It's just down, man. celebrity who had everything, and now they've got nothing. And now they're just lost souls. All right. Lonely is the word. So that is the Heaven and Hell album. Black Sabbath. Amen. 2 thumbs up there. Masterful. Fantastic. Every single track is top notch. The whole album collectively is fantastic. Showcases Tony's great guitaring, Ronnie's fantastic vocals, and definitely the rhythm section just being on point. One of the best ever. Hey man, you can't do much better than this. Especially a debut outing for Ronnie James Dio. And maybe, I don't know how long it was before their previous album with Ozzy, and then coming into this one. Don't know how long it was. Maybe they took some time off and then they got right back into it. But all the same, fantastic. It's a debut of sorts, and great for a debut, man. Excellent, excellent album. Every single song is just fantastic. Man, to have a voice to sing and just be able to belt it out like Ronnie James Dio. Could you imagine, man? Definitely one of the best singers ever. When he first came up on my radar, one of the first impressions I ever got of Ronnie James Dio was the Tenacious D movie. Do you remember that? Jack Black was a young kid, and he was living in a very, very restrictive household. His father, Meatloaf, I believe it was, good actor by the way, he was a very God-fearing, fire and brimstone kind of dad, and he would just not allow his son to get into that evil rock and roll nonsense. And so his son is up in his room and he's looking up at a Dio poster saying, "Hey Dio, what do I do, man? My dad's a real jerk. I want to live. I want to enjoy rock and roll. You know, what do I do?" So the poster comes to life, and Dio, man, leans into this kid and he starts singing with this thunderous delivery. And here I am. The first impression I thought was, look at this little man with this thunderous, thunderous voice. Yo, it just got my attention. And I remember where I was. I was at a buddy's place and we were drinking and we were really, really smashed. But I remember myself just sobering up right away when I saw and heard that voice. You know, I can't recall if it was for the first time. I think it was my very first exposure to Dio. But ever since then, I just marked it in my mind. Damn, man.
Dio, can you hear me? I am lost and so alone. I'm asking for your guidance. Won't you come down from your throne? I need a tight compadre who will teach me how to rock. My father thinks you're evil, but man, he can suck a cock. Rock is not the devil's work, it's magical and rad. I'll never rock as long as I am stuck here with my dad.
I hear you, brave young jabrils, you are hungry for the rock. But to learn the ancient methods, secret doors you must unlock. Escape your father's clutches in this oppressive neighborhood. On a journey you must go to find the land of Hollywood.
And then when I did my Ronnie James Dio quad, I told an account of this as well in the quad. But yeah, man, shameful that I haven't done a lot more of Ronnie James Dio. That's what I'm basically leading up to. It's shameful that I haven't done more of Ronnie James Dio. But I'll definitely continue with the Black Sabbath album chronology for sure, man. Yeah, and what I'll do too, if I remember, is I will attach a link of the Ronnie James Dio quad to this particular reaction, and so that you can see kind of like where I was going with this and all, and what I'm remembering. Yo, man, fantastic. Black Sabbath, great pioneers, man. And our rock and roll, our classic rock, our modern rock, all of that sort of thing just would not be the same without them being one of the trailblazers. Definitely not. And Tony Iommi, yeah. And about Tony, now what was it? He worked in a pig farm, was it? And he had an accident and he lost a part of his finger. So he had to really adapt. The learning curve was a little bit steeper for him because of that accident. And so, yo, you talk about a great success story of overcoming and then becoming something great and masterful. Look no further than Tony Iommi's example. Great guitarist, man. I don't know much about the guy. I don't know much about his life. I believe he was married to, is it Lita Ford? Maybe not. I don't know. But he was also a good friend of John Bonham. Now I can't remember who was at either person's wedding. I think Bonham might have been best man at his wedding, or maybe he might have been best man at Bonham's wedding. That's what I heard. But yeah, I know very little about Tony Iommi, only that he's one of the all-time greats. And yo, happy birthday to you again, sir. So, what I want to do here, man, before I just go off and keep talking, is I want to really get into the backbones of this album. But first I got a question. Maybe it's going to be answered as I read, but let me ask this question while it's in my head. The relations in Black Sabbath with the departure of Ozzy, I've learned that he was fired because his drug use got out of control. Ronnie comes in. Of course, there's a lot of pressure. They're probably undoubtedly the biggest rock act. And so now Ronnie's got to fill huge shoes in what Ozzy left. So he did that successfully with this first album. What was the relationship like with Ozzy and Black Sabbath, and specifically Ronnie? How did Ozzy feel about Ronnie successfully filling his shoes? If I can basically say that. If I'm wrong in that regard, wrong for saying it that way, let me know that. But that's my question. How were relations? How did Ozzy feel? How does Ozzy feel about Ronnie James Dio? What was their relationship like? That's what I'm after. Anyway, get back to me about that, man. That'd be very interesting. So, I'm just going to my Wikipedia page here, man. And Heaven and Hell album information. Okay, so let's do a little read here, man. Heaven and Hell. Heaven and Hell is the 9th studio album by English rock band Black Sabbath, released on the 25th of April 1980. It's the first Black Sabbath album to feature vocalist Ronnie James Dio, who replaced original vocalist Ozzy Osbourne in '79. Produced by Martin Birch, the album was a commercial success, particularly in the US, where it reached number 28 on the Billboard 200 chart and was certified platinum for 1 million sales in the US alone. In the band's native country, it sold well enough to be certified silver by the British phonographic industry in April of '82. Okay, album overview. The initial sessions for what became Heaven and Hell began with Ozzy Osbourne. Following the conclusion of the Black Sabbath's Never Say Die tour, the band convened in LA for an 11-month period to record a new album, a process described by guitarist Tony Iommi as highly frustrating, never-ending process. Osborne has stated that he had become fed up with the experimentation on the preceding albums, Technical Ecstasy and Never Say Die, preferring the band's earlier, heavier sound. In his memoir, Iommi revealed that he still possesses a tape featuring Osborne singing an early version of what would become Children of the Sea, with a different lyric and a total different vocal melody. Ronnie James Dio was introduced to Iommi in '79 by Sharon Arden, who would later marry Osborne. Initially, Dio and Iommi discussed forming a new band rather than a continuation of Black Sabbath. The pair met again by chance at the Rainbow on Sunset Strip in LA later that year. Both men were in similar situations. Dio was seeking a new project and Iommi required a vocalist. And there's a quote here. "It must have been fate," Dio recalled, "because we connected so instantly." The pair kept in touch by telephone until Dio arrived at Iommi's LA house for a relaxed getting to know you jam session. On that first day, the duo finished Children of the Sea, a song Iommi had abandoned prior to Osborne's firing. Sabbath was this is a quote here. Sabbath was a band that was floundering, Dio observed, and with my inclusion in it, we pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps, cared a lot for each other, and knew that we would do it again, especially under the banner of a band that had been so successful. Sabbath's lineup was in a state of chaos as the band prepared to enter the studio to record what would become Heaven and Hell. Not only had the band replaced its longtime vocalist, but drummer Bill Ward was battling personal issues that would see him also leave the band within months. Demo recordings for the album featured Jeff Nichols on bass, as longtime bassist Geezer Butler was going through a divorce and his future with the band was in question. In fact, when Dio first joined the band, he doubled for a short time as bassist and vocalist, having played bass in the band Elf in the early 1970s. At one point, Iommi contacted close friend Frank Zappa for help finding a bassist. Zappa offered his bassist for the Heaven and Hell sessions, but Iommi preferred a permanent member. Eventually, Butler returned to the band and Nichols stayed on as the band's unofficial keyboardist. Personal issues aside, drummer Bill Ward wasn't completely happy with the direction Black Sabbath was moving in creativity. Personal issues aside, drummer Bill Ward wasn't completely happy with the direction Black Sabbath was moving creatively. Heaven and Hell, for me, wasn't a turning point, he recalled. Heaven and Hell was the beginning of a new band, of which I had no idea what band I was in. It was almost like Ron was capable of coming up with lyrics that seemed to fit his idea of how Black Sabbath ought to be, and I sensed a kind of unrealness about the lyrics. My favorite song, though, on Heaven and Hell was a blues song that we did, Lonely is the Word, and that seemed to be real. But things like Lady Evil, they seemed almost like bandwagon-type lyrics. Lonely is the Word, I definitely liked playing that song. And Children of the Sea, I did like to play that as well. I thought Ronnie was a very good singer. Okay, that's unquote, that's by Bill Ward. So, so we got 2 paragraphs to go. That's reception. So, reception. Greg Prato of AllMusic calls Heaven and Hell one of Sabbath's finest records and maintains that the band sounds reborn and re-energized throughout, giving the album 5 stars. Sputnik Music's Tyler Monroe opines, musically, the album speeds things up while still retaining the Sabbath sound. Complete with a slow plodding bass line and repetitive drumming, the album's title track is quite possibly the best thing Sabbath has ever done. It's one of the best doom metal songs ever recorded. While Dio's addition revitalized Sabbath and brought them a younger, more enthusiastic fan base, there were some critics and listeners who insisted Sabbath had been irretrievably altered, with Rolling Stone contending, quote, Although Dio could belt with the best of them, Sabbath would never be the same. In his autobiography, Iommi admits, quote, "We were doing big shows, and it was difficult for Ronnie to go out and stand in front of people who had seen Ozzy in that spot for 10 years. Some of the kids hated it, and they'd shout, 'Boo, Ozzy, Ozzy.' But eventually, Ronnie won them over." Regardless of what Ozzy loyalists thought, Sabbath was back, with Mick Wall noting in his book Black Sabbath, Symptoms of the Universe, quote, "For once, their timing was spot on. In Britain, Sounds magazine had begun championing a new musical phenomenon it dubbed the new wave of British heavy metal. The reborn Black Sabbath, with their glistening new sound, incomparable new singer, and top-drawer new album, were seen as part of a widespread revival in rock fandom." Okay, so that is Song Fact Info on Heaven and Hell. Yeah, man, great album. Very, very well received. Great critical reception. Nothing really negative. Even the Rolling Stone, covered that there will never be the same. And he's basically speaking truth. I don't know how much negativity is born out of that statement, but basically it's true that, of course, it's a different sound, different singer. It won't be the same. But what did stay the same was their great musicianship, their great storytelling, all of the great meanings in their songs, the warnings, their concern about the global big picture. They're not just singing about, "Oh, I fell in love with her, she did me wrong." They're talking about big, global, serious things. They're talking about the ins and outs of relationships too. But they are capable of covering a wide array of topics. And Dio or Ozzy, regardless, that is Black Sabbath on a whole. They can talk about anything, and I like that about their songwriting. It is not a fool's errand to pay attention to the lyrics coming from Black Sabbath. So, that, man, is my reaction to this excellent album. And yeah, forgive me, I don't know what the album following this one is. Obviously, it's with Ronnie on the vocals. So I'll definitely try my best to be more consistent with the Black Sabbath chronology. Well, speaking of, whenever I mention Black Sabbath, I think of the Unholy Trinity, and I'm thinking of Deep Purple. I've got to get on following my Deep Purple chronology as well. I believe Burn is the next album that I have to do. So I'm going to try my best to get on that as well. Lots to do. Got quads to do. A bunch of quads off the top of my head. I know I got to do one for Akachita. Rhymes with Teeth, Sarah, Alan, Robert. I got a bunch of quads to do as well. So that's what's happening, man. It's the 25th today. Artist of the month for next month is coming up. I'm going to send you guys out a poll, a questionnaire, and everyone can kind of follow along, and tally up and see that, okay, this person is leading. This is how I'm going to place my recommendation so that we can have this person, that sort of thing. I have no problem with patrons campaigning, trying to influence the other person to, hey, let's try and see if we can get so and such as artists of them. Got no problem with that. Just keep it classy. Don't attack each other for their choices. So that is it, man. That is my reaction to this great album. Loved it, just like a lot of you said that I would love it, and I would definitely listen to it 100 times. So with that said, I gotta bounce, man. So you guys have yourselves a good day, and I'll catch you in my next Black Sabbath reaction. Peace.